Good evening, brethren. This evening we're going to speak about our brother, Robert Burns. Robert Burns was a poet of Scotland. He was born in the year 1759 and became a Mason at the age of 22. Robert Burns wrote several poems that you may not know by name, but you would be familiar of them in a roundabout way. He wrote a poem called To a Mouse, which you may not have heard of except for the one line which both the book and the movie came from. The best laid plans of mice and men oft gang awry. Robert Burns was a farmer, and he wrote a lot about the land. He became famous at the age of like 24. Some don't do very well with fame, but Robert took to it like a fish to water. He went to Edinburgh, met all the establishment, and people that knew him at the time said that they appreciated him more for his conversation than they did for his correspondence. And that talking to Robert Burns, it was like he glowed. Very gregarious man. Robert died young, at the age of 37, from an infection. We think now probably from an abscessed tooth. And Robert's influence lives on. There are more statues and likenesses of Robert Burns than any other author of the English language. His fame spread from Japan to Russia. And as a matter of fact, almost 300 years after his death, in 1956, a commemorative stamp in his likeness was issued by no other place than the USSR, Nikolai Khrushchev's USSR. Tonight we're going to speak about another poem of Robert Burns, Tam o' Shanter. Now, many of you may not know this by name either, but there are references to it that you may know. Some of you may be familiar with the Cutty Sark whiskey. It's got a ship on the bottle. And if you look closely on the ship, on the bow of the ship, you will see a woman, often topless, with her arms outstretched as if to catch something. Cutty Sark. Tam o' Shanter. When I was originally asked to do this, I was asked to do it in the Gaelic. And I phoned my father and I told him that. And he says, "Did you offend him? Why would you do it in the Gaelic?" So just to give you a taste of what it's like, I will start it in the Gaelic. When chapman billies leave the street, and market days are wearing late, and folks begin to tack the gate, and we sit browsing at the nappy, getting through and unco happy. I'm not sure exactly what he's saying there. I think we're going to need a translator. But boozing at the nappy is drinking beer. That much I got. So that was our first image of Tam. He's at the bar getting soused. Now his wife, he paints a picture of her too. A sulky, sullen dame, gathering brows like a gathering storm, and nursing her wrath to keep it warm. So, Tam is in no hurry to go home. He's at the bar, getting happy, drinking, joking, and he's chasing a good time. And chasing a good time is like a poppy's spread. You grip the flower, but the bloom is shed. Or snow that falls upon a river, white a moment, melts forever. Or the borealis rays which flit ere you can point their place. So Tom's chasing a good time and they don't last. Meanwhile, a storm is brewing outside. Thunder and lightning, and the wind would blow as if 'twould blown its last. That night a child could understand the devil had business on his hand. And there sits Tam. Well, no man can tether time or tide. The hour approaches, and Tam must ride. So the last image we have from Tam as he leaves the bar is on his good mare, Meg, who skelping on through daub and mire, despising wind and rain and fire, holding fast his good blue bonnet and crooning on his old Scott sonnet. So there he was, drunkenly singing on the rain, hanging onto his hat, galloping with his Meg mare to the old church. Now, this is a scary place, the old kirk, they called it. That's where Mungo's mother hanged himself. That's where they found the murdered baby. That's where Charlie broke his neck, and all these terrible things happened. And Tam, our hero, rides right up by the church where he stops because he heard music and he saw lights and he wanted to see what was going on in the church at the stroke of midnight. Oh, inspiring, bold John Barleycorn, what dangers ye can make us scorn. So even though his mare didn't want to go, he admonishes her, and up to the window, and he peeks in. And there's the sight of sights. The devil himself was playing the fiddle, and all these coffins wrapped around the church were standing open, and all the corpses had a light in their hand, and they were dressed. It was how they were dressed when they were buried. And some of them were dead for 100 years. And on the table were all sorts of terrible things. There was 5 scimitars with red blood crusted, and 5 tomahawks with murder rusted, and a knife that had slit a father's throat, and things more terrible and awful, even to mention it, would be unlawful. So around this, all the witches and warlocks were dancing. Cotillion, a brand new from France. But rigs and pipes and spetlash reels, whatever that is, put the metal in their heels. In other words, they were dancing French dances, but to Scottish music, which made it even better. Well, these ugly old hags would be enough to turn your stomach, but there was one who was freshly dead, this very night enlisted in the corps, Lang Affin Ken from Carrick's shore. Carrick Fergus, she was Irish, and a winsome lass at that. She was dancing around the altar, and Tam was very interested, and the music was fast and furious, and as she was whirling and dancing, she got very hot, so she took off her dress and was just dancing in her undergarments. And Tam lost his mind, and he said, "Well done, Cutty Sark!" And as soon as he said that, the lights went out, and all the hounds and hells of the devil went chasing after Tam. And Tam had to run for the keystone of the bridge. Tam, Tam, you'll get your fare, and they'll roast you in hell just like a heron. Kate Bain awaits your coming tonight. She'll be a woeful woman. Now, Meg, do your spady best to reach the brig. There you may toss your tail, for a running stream they dare not cross. In other words, if he gets to the running stream of the bridge, the ghosts can't catch him. So here comes Tam galloping away, and here comes the woman from the ship with her arms outstretched. And just as he reaches the keystone of the bridge, she grabs a hold of the tail and pulls it off Meg, leaving just a stump. So the moral of the story: if to women and drink you're so inclined, keep in mind Tam Shanty's mare. In other words, you show me a man whose mind is filled with booze and women, and I'll show you a horse's ass.